Greetings, fellow men. Servus Männer. It's Red Pill Germany again, and today I want to talk about a little more light-hearted subject, nothing too serious on this Sunday afternoon. I'm just snowed in here, it's snowing like crazy outside, and I'm comfortable in my warm apartment with some black tea and some Christmas cookies I baked recently, keeping the family tradition alive. Alright, the topic I want to discuss is tattoos and piercings and all this body art culture that just exploded in Western countries in recent years, actually since 2000, I think. So I've been in the United States, for example, around 2000 and then again 2005-ish, and not many people had neck tattoos or really visible piercings in their face or something, or tattoos on their hands. So they had tattoos maybe on their calf or on their shoulder blade, something you don't see under a suit or even a short sleeve shirt. Now I went back to the US for a conference around 2011 it was, I think. It was in California, and I was shocked to see so many people on the streets and in shops who had these visible tattoos and piercings. Now my thoughts on this topic already evolved back then, and especially after moving to Japan I spun this a little further, but now I read an article this week that is a nice opportunity to make a video about it. And a little disclaimer, a little warning, if this sounds like a very mean-spirited video to you, or that I'm just mocking that person that the article is about, I apologize in advance, but actually not, because this is, for me, it's just truth, and it's the only way I can cover this subject actually, especially in this instance. And it is a red pill for young people now, and not a very important red pill maybe, but well, in individual cases I think it is. So here it goes. This article appeared in the newspaper Die Zeit, and it is about a chemist with a PhD who is unemployed for 2 years already, and he cannot find employment. He's not invited to any interviews because he has 20 millimeter, so that's a little bit under an inch, diameter flesh tunnels in his ears. So let me just read to you some lines of this article. So he starts saying, I am white, male, highly qualified, and I have a German passport. I have very good grades and work experience. And if the job requires it, of course I appear in a shirt and suit. I have studied chemistry, and this is a subject that is very relevant to the industry and for the workforce. I also have a PhD. In spite of all that, since almost 2 years I am unemployed. Why? Maybe because I have an Eastern European sounding family name. But for sure, one of the reasons is because I'm applying in a very conservative industry and I have rather unconventional ear accessories. So my comment on that segment is that the bringing up of the Eastern European family name is just bullshit. There are so many Szymanskis and Vizoreks in higher management and in great positions around in the industry and in the government. That is clearly not the reason. But it already tells us where this man is coming from. Now he goes on to say that it is because he liked techno music when he was young and that this kind of piercing is irreversible. And I don't agree with that, but whatever. He goes on to say that during 4 years he was only invited to 4 job interviews actually, and during every one of them he noticed that the gazes and the looks of the people were always focused on his ear. But this is alright. Not alright is, however, that during one of those interviews, one of the interviewers asked, "Do you plan on emigrating to the Congo?" So I think at least that interviewer had some sense of humor, and that is actually a good question. So he proceeds to say that these tunnels could be seen as a sin from his youth, basically, but he doesn't see it that way actually. He stands by his ear accessories and it fits to his music taste and to his entire lifestyle. So he doesn't understand why in the 21st century this should be a problem. Tattoos and piercings are now acceptable in mainstream society, he thinks. So he's completely wrong with that assessment, of course. He's just a clown. But let's discuss this article further and go more deep after I translate to you the last paragraph. A very important paragraph, actually. He says, I am really angry. Employers always advertise diversity these days, but diversity around the ear is not allowed. Instead, the idea prevails that you cannot send someone like me to a business partner or a customer. He concludes by admitting, yeah, sure, this kind of ear accessory doesn't look really suitable for a businessman, but when I see all these banking apprentices in their ill-fitting cheap suits, then that doesn't look very serious and professional to me, actually. So to that I can only say diversity when it comes to these stupid lifestyle questions is ridiculous. We don't even have diversity of thought in companies or in the government, so how dare you demand diversity when it comes to these little lifestyle choices or these fashion statements that is so empty. The thing he says at the end when he points to these young banking apprentices with their cheap suits is actually remarkable. These apprentices are 16 or 18 years old. They're basically still youths or children. And of course, they don't fill a business suit yet. They're still youngsters. Yeah? And he has a PhD in chemistry. That means he is 30 or even older right now. He shouldn't compare himself to 16-year-old boys. He is a 30-year-old man. He has a PhD. And he feels the need to point at little boys and say they're allowed to do it too. And actually, they're not having neck tattoos or weird piercings. They're wearing a business suit to show how serious they are, to show respect to the company and to the customer. And if this guy is too much of a child, actually more of a child than a 16-year-old boy, that he doesn't understand that, he's a truly pitiable fool. And actually, he said earlier, in retrospect, I think it was a grave mistake that I decided to have a job in this conservative industry. Even men with longer hair have a hard time here. In the media industry, however, with my tunnels, I wouldn't be seen as exotic. So please work in the media. They have tons of jobs and so much money flying around there, yeah, just like in the chemistry industry, I'm sure. And when I read this, I actually started to doubt that this is actually a chemist with a PhD, because what chemist, what scientist would say he should have gone into the media? The natural order of things is that the physicist looks down on the chemist looks down on the biologist looks up to the biologist of course looks down on the social sciences, and we all look down on the media guys and the marketing freaks. And also, if he's really a scientist who gives a damn about his science and he feels a true call to being a scientist, then he wouldn't choose a little lifestyle statement, a little fashion statement over his career in chemistry. So this actually makes me wonder if this is a real chemist who was interviewed for this article, or if the woman who wrote this article is just actually making up the whole story to install a new category of protected minority and a new diversity degree of freedom. That is, you can mutilate your face and still get a job in the industry, right? That is one more protected minority they could weaponize against Western culture. Maybe foreigners and weird religious cults are no longer enough for those guys. But of course, it could just be that he is a freak who was in some unsuccessful department and he just sat around on his chair for 5 years. And many professors, they give you a PhD even without a major journal publication. So having a PhD alone doesn't tell you anything. You need to be from the right department. You need to have a strong track record of experimental work and collaborations with other researchers. You need to have peer-reviewed journal articles, and you need to have spoken on international conferences. So just saying I have a PhD in chemistry, sorry, that by itself doesn't really say anything. There are loser departments out there whose chairs will give you a PhD after 5 years anyway. So now, after I'm done covering this article, I want to tell you what I really think about piercings and tattoos and all these things. So I hope some of you guys are still listening, because this is the actual meat of the matter here. In many cultures, and Western culture included, tattoos mean that you live outside of mainstream society. It is a way to identify or to test for a group that is living outside of society, that you are loyal to them and that you won't give up their secrets, you won't turn them into the police, and you won't just return to mainstream society and have that nice office job. You see that, for example, in the Japanese Yakuza, and I noticed this very, very clearly when I went to Japan. When I wanted to rent an apartment in Japan, I was actually signing a contract that said I don't have any tattoos. Tattoos are a serious issue in Japan, and even the Yakuza don't have visible tattoos. They don't have tattoo on their neck or on their face. When they wear a business suit, they look like the serious businessmen that they actually are. Most of them work in import-export or in the construction business. Of course, they are criminal syndicates, but they have been around for centuries and they have their own code of honor, and they formed a symbiosis and a, well, almost fruitful coexistence with the mainstream society, with the industry and the government in Japan. And even less civilized criminal groups, like some street gangs or prison gangs, they all have their tattoos, and you must have them. They don't allow you in unless you have them, because it is at least one little thing that they can do to ensure that you're serious, that you are worth accepting in that group. But guess what? Mainstream society is also a group. If you wish to see it that way, mainstream society or the corporate world, or like a big pharmaceutical company like Bayer, or a big chemical company like BASF from Germany, they are also gangs, if you wish. And in former times, they actually stood by your side for life and they required loyalty. But now that our industry has been reshaped due to US American globalist ideals, we no longer have this lifetime bond between a company and an employee. So this changes a little bit. But think of it as this. In those Yakuza circles, you can only enter if you get these tattoos. Into a prison gang, you get when you do get their tattoos. But in the corporate gangs, you only get in when you don't have these tattoos. That is also a statement. When you're free of all that stuff, that is a statement that you respect their hierarchy, their order, and their authority. And just like those prison gangs and just like those crime syndicates in Asia, they require you to conform to these rules. And if you don't want to do that, well, guess what? Then you can't play ball with them. And then there is another phenomenon that happened in the West that was preparing the normies, these normie losers, these blue pill losers, to also mutilate themselves as if they were in some crime syndicate. And that is athletes, very rich, very successful athletes, and stars, like rock stars, for example, doing that. But guess what? These people are not working in crime syndicates, but they also will never work in the office ever again, because they're millionaires. They can retire when they're 35 or something. So they can have as many tattoos as they want to, because they will never have to work in the corporate world. And for those people, it's fine, because they don't want these office jobs anyway. They can do that. It's not like Beckham will come to IBM and beg for a job as a software developer or a consultant for semiconductor technology. But somewhere at some point in time it happened that the blue pill normies thought they can have it too, and then just go to the corporate world when they're 35 and look for a job. So for all my younger listeners, let this be a maybe important red pill for you, that no, tattoos and piercings means you're outside of mainstream society. When this is really irreversible, then just don't have these things and you can get back to the office job. If you know that you will never ever work in a corporate job again, then by all means do whatever you want. But when you see executives from the German industry or from other countries' industries, and even middle management or developers or technical experts, you will never see neck tattoos. You will never see all too crazy hairs. I have a couple of colleagues with long hair, but it is a sign of respect. It is a sign that you accept the hierarchy, and that when they send you to a customer or to a business partner, that your looks will not be the focus of their attention, but you can discuss business. I do also have, however, colleagues with weird piercings and neck tattoos, but guess where they are working? They're working at the production line. Now, this is also a very important job, but they don't have any customer contact. They don't have contact with other developers. They don't have contact with other middle management. They're working really in the workshop, on the shop floor, at the production line. And they're paid very well. They do a very excellent job there, but they will not be management. And they're, well, sorry to say that, but they're all not very educated people. And they have all the crazy piercings and tattoos, and if you are not one of those guys, then don't use their symbols and don't use their insignia, for crying out loud. I mean, I say it again, these are excellent workers. These are people that are vital to the company also, but they are not working in the office. That's just how it is. So if you want to work construction, or if you want to work in a company, in a factory, really in production at the production line directly, yeah, you can smoke, you can have all the tattoos, all that cool, exciting stuff. So that's my little advent present for you guys this Sunday. Catch you guys again later. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Servus, Kameraden.